Local musician not good at satire. Hey, this is episode 50 of WBEZ's It's All True podcast, powered by America's second favorite source for fake news, thewhiskeyjournal.com. I'm your host, Tim Barnes, and you just heard a fake news headline from singer-songwriter Gabe Leibovitz. In each episode, I chat with a great human and then ask them to tell a funny, personal, true story. This week, I talked to comedian Andy Kindler.
I'm a big believer in not being a big believer.
He explains the history behind the alternative comedy scene.
We kind of had to form the alternative movement because comedy became so homogenized and horrible.
And the reason he gets into so many Twitter arguments.
I've ended many friendships, and I'm not kidding, many friendships with people because I won't hate Muslims.
All of this, plus his headlining story.
I was about half a foot tall at that time. The baseball glove, I wore it as a bodysuit.
But first, let's hear him tell some jokes.
Let's dispense with the pleasantries and get straight to the humor. Every month, my cell phone company, they send me information about text messaging. What's the pitch for text messaging? Do you find talking on the phone to be too convenient? Would you like to turn your phone conversations into a more laborious process? Would you like to find more areas of your life that involve typing? I went to the doctor about a month ago, and he gave me a tube of ointment, and I got it home, and on the side of the tube it said, "Not for ophthalmic use." Not for ophthalmic use. Do you think if you're stupid enough to take a tube of ointment and squirt it in your eye, you're going to be deterred by the word ophthalmic? Let me see, I have a rash on my leg, but let me squirt a little bit of this in my eye like I normally like to do, just for old time's sake. Oh, wait a second. Not for ophthalmic use. I'll go get a medical dictionary and just lightly coat my cornea in the meantime. There's an ice cream store around the block from me, and I called them up one day just to find out what time they closed, and they said, "Cold Stone Creamery, it's a great day to have ice cream." And my response was, "You don't have to sell me. I'm calling you. I already want the ice cream." Do you think some people call up and say, "Yeah, I'm on the fence about ice cream. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Is it good? Is it a nice dessert item? Is it sweet? Is it flavored at all? Or is it flavor neutral? Could you fax me over a brochure concerning the ice cream and I could take a look, see at it, perhaps?" You think I added enough to that joke, or because I have an attachment? You can order an attachment.
That was comedian Andy Kindler on The Late Show with David Letterman. Andy is in a unique position where he's allowed to talk about almost anything and anyone. I learned this because in an effort to ease into the interview, I tried to impress him by bringing up past guests. I've had Jonathan Katz on. I've had Eddie Izzard.
Oh, I'm sorry. Was he did he explain to you how anyone can be pretentious?
Yes.
Is that easy? It's quite... what I do is I make my mundane observations sound like they just occurred to me. I don't do an English accent.
Well, he told me that he is not afraid to do comedy in other languages, and I didn't really believe him.
That is the worst idea that anyone has come up with in the world. It's such a self-indulgent, narcissistic idea that I'm sure the audience does not enjoy it. He does his act in German.
Really?
Yeah, and I have a joke about it. My joke is, I don't like Eddie Izzard's act that much, but often I go, maybe in German I'd like it. Maybe if it was in German, I'd enjoy it. Maybe if it was in a language that reminded me of my Jewish suffering, then I'd get into it.
And he's working on Mandarin, too, which is kind of shocking.
He should be stopped from all of those things. He's doing his act in Mandarin?
Yeah.
Why doesn't he work on his act more in English? And you can tell him I said that, Eddie Izzard. And you know why you can tell him I said that? Because he couldn't care less about me. He's a huge Eddie Izzard star. He's one of these guys in every movie. All of a sudden, I got to have Eddie Izzard in my movie. Do they ever say I have to have Andy Kindler in my movie? I hope you're rolling on this.
Yeah, we're rolling. We are. Yeah.
And it's all true, right?
It's all true,
It's time for me to pull the take the gloves off.
So my only real preparation for this interview was I asked my friend Ian if he had any tidbits about you. He said, one, he's a black belt. Is that true?
Yeah, this is not something that I wanted to advertise, although I do secretly want to advertise it. But I told Megan Keister, who's a very funny comedian, in fact, she is the reincarnation of Andy Kindler.
Really?
Megan
And you're
Keister.
still alive?
That's the thing that the scientists can't figure out. How do you do it when the guy's still living? So I was driving her home, and I don't know how it got onto me being a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Then she went ahead and did something about it on Facebook.
Is this a childhood passion?
No. When I was a boy, what am I, 90? I was very short. I was 4'11" through high school. Then I shot up to what my friend Boris Hamilton, the comedian, calls me, Cinco de Mayo.
Now, was this a dangerous neighborhood you grew up in where you felt like you had to defend yourself?
Yes, I did, because I was a Reformed Jew, and my other friends were members of a conservative or Orthodox Jews. So it got very rough. It was Queens. And often they would say, so you don't want to wear a yarmulke. And then, boom, it was go time. No, I took martial arts because I never got into a fight. And I was scared about fighting. And I didn't want to go my whole life being scared that everyone could beat me up and that they would beat me up.
Now, have you ever been in a fight?
Not since I've taken... Well, no. I was in a couple of little scuffles when I was a kid, but they were terrible. Okay. And I have not been in the fight. And I don't want to still... I don't want to. It's not like I... It's like Billy Jack. You ever see Billy Jack?
I've never seen Billy Jack.
Oh my! What?
I'm.
It's one of the worst. Greatest movies.
Okay.
But he says at one point he goes, "I'm gonna take my foot,
and I'm gonna whop you on that side of your face,
and there's not a thing you can do about it."
Really?
And then he does an inside-out crescent kick and knocks the guy, and he's like a foot away. So that means the it's almost like an axe kick. It goes up, it goes over. That's what I fantasize about.
How often do you deal with hecklers?
I have been lucky in that I don't encourage hecklers. You know, like when I tell people, I don't tell people anything. It's not England. I don't like that thing in London. Take the piss out of us. Take your own piss out of you. And get a different expression that doesn't gross me out. I don't want... To me, funny isn't I have to prove to you I'm funny because you say something in your drunken stupor, and I've got to come back with some, look at this guy. Look at this guy. What have you had, 45 vodkas? What are you, an alcoholic? That's my example of dealing with hecklers.
But aren't there positive hecklers, too?
Yes.
Where they feel so comfortable with you on stage that they feel like there's actually a dialogue happening.
Well, there's always a touchy issue because I think even in Chicago, didn't someone once write in Chicago, because there was a big controversy about it, about how heckling should be okay?
Oh,
Does it ring a bell to you?
Not to me, no.
Because I remember Patton Oswalt.
Maybe it was Cameron Esposito or something?
No, it wasn't Cameron Esposito, but let's blame her, though. Nice going, Cameron Esposito, with your pro-heckling article. But every 2 months, Patton blows a gasket about something. And I do it every week, but it's with robots online that I'm arguing with loves to serial kill 666. Doesn't like my bits.
I never was able to fight. When I was a kid in school, I could never fight. I never in, 7th grade once, I spilled some milk on this kid in lunchroom. He goes, "I'm going to kick your ass, Kindler. 3 o'clock in the playground. You better be there, too. 3 o'clock in the playground." Not only did he want to beat me up, he wanted me to make an actual appointment to get my ass kicked. Yeah, let me jot that down in the old date book. Ass kicking by Mike at 3.
What is the difference between the Andy Kindler who started off in comedy? I'm sure you had a lot of big dreams at the time.
Are you saying that they never were realized?
I'm not saying that, but I'm sure
you are saying
I'm
that.
saying
I get the subtext with you young guys.
I'm saying I get a sense of
what are you saying?
nothing. No, I'm saying like you're hard to impress.
Oh, but I'm not like one of these guys who says that I'm not going to laugh. I will laugh. I've laughed at you many times during this podcast. No, a young Andy Kindler, first of all, very handsome, with or without the acid-washed 80s jacket. I'm a big believer in not being a big believer. I believe that if you're funny, then the whole trick is, you were funny before you were a comedian. The whole trick is to make yourself what you were off stage, on stage. That's, to me, is the goal, because I don't do characters. I just do a Jewish voice and then a very annoyed Jewish voice. And so when I was starting out, it just was way more hit and miss. I was way more knocked over by the crowds, and also didn't have a handle on what material I wanted to do. And
Yeah,
so,
what was your goal?
What you call boredom, I call maturity.
But who were your inspirations?
I would say that the people I was emulating would be like Woody Allen. I was a huge fan of his movies like Annie Hall, Manhattan, Crimes and Misdemeanors, Hannah and Her Sisters.
I don't understand. Aren't you frightened?
Of what? I'll be unconscious.
Yeah, I know, but never to exist again?
How do you know?
But it certainly doesn't look promising.
Who knows what it'll be? I'll either be unconscious or I won't. If not, I'll deal with it then. I'm not going to worry now about what's going to be when I'm unconscious.
Mom, come out.
Of course there's a God, you idiot. You don't believe in God?
But there's a God, then why is there so much evil in the world? Well, just on a simplistic level, why were there Nazis?
Tell him, Max.
How the hell do I know why there were Nazis? I don't know how the can opener works.
I always loved movies that were where the comedy came out of the situation as opposed to being like, Airplane was great, and then they made 4,000 other airplane-type movies. And then I loved Albert Brooks.
Johnny, this is what American ingenuity can do in almost 400 grand. I am premiering tonight the second ingredient in the home comedy kit, the electronic dummy. You don't need to be able to throw your voice. Would you welcome Buddy? All right? Buddy, say hi to the audience. Hi. All right. Happy to be here, aren't you, Buddy? Yes, I know you are.
I mean, stand-up-wise, I knew about Lenny Bruce, but didn't know much about him. I think my favorite was Richard Pryor, because I saw Richard Pryor's first live special, which is, I still think, the best one ever made.
Is that the Live and Smokin'?
No, and I always mix it up. It's like it's not the one it's not the Sunset Strip one, and it's just amazing.
I feel like people forget how absurd Richard Pryor was.
Absurd, but also vulnerable.
Yeah,
and everything came from his heart, and so.
But he has that joke where he's talking about a woman that he likes who loves it when he does a baby voice. You know what joke I'm talking about?
I don't remember that. No.
She said, "You know that act you do about the little kids?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "You like that?" She said, "Yeah, would you mind talking like a little kid?" Now? She said, "Yeah."
The younger he gets, the more clothes he takes off.
Oh, that
and then
sounds so
the punchline
good.
is...
She gave birth to me about 9:30.
That's very funny.
And it's so absurd. He has jokes where like a dog is talking and things like that.
Oh, well,
it's like people don't talk about that aspect of his...
Well, because of all the, when you light yourself on fire, that's what people tend to gravitate towards. He was all of those things.
You were around during the comedy, the
famous comedy boom.
Comedy boom.
Right.
What did it feel like at the time? I mean, were people referring to it as a comedy boom?
It really started in the late 70s with Letterman and all those guys who were and Pryor was there too. But Pryor was a little bit before Letterman. But Letterman and Leno and Richard Lewis, George Miller, all those guys who came out of the Comedy Store, that started this like boom. So by the time I started comedy, which was in 84, but I was in a duo for a couple of years in 86, it was in full swing, but you could already see like how long could this go on. And from 1987 to 1992, I was on the road for like 40 weeks a year. So I feel very lucky that I came up then. Not lucky because the crowds got terrible, and that's what, in fact, I was part of this, whatever you want to call it, alternative movement in L.A., and there was one in New York, too, with Lunar Lounge. We kind of had to form the alternative movement because comedy became so homogenized and horrible.
Which world do you prefer?
Well, I think that there are clubs that are more mainstream clubs. Like, I always had a problem in the last few years when I did go to Zanies. Is like Zanies reminds me of the comedy boom years. So I would bomb there constantly. So there are clubs I know I would still bomb. But in general, I think there's never been a better time than right now. Because really, like, you guys have guys like Adomian and Ian Carmel and all these people doing very weird things. Tig Notaro.
Yeah.
Tig Notaro probably couldn't have been, she would have been like looked at, oh, who's this person? But now I just think it's very, I feel envious of people who are still doing comedy. No, I'm in my prime. I think right now the word alternative isn't needed that much. But there's a lot of other factors to it. Like in the comedy boom, nobody had you couldn't click on the act. and see who was there. And they never advertised for the act. They always advertised, come down to the Funny Bone. So just the fact that people know what they're going to see, I think, makes it much better right then, you know?
I know they use Twitter a lot.
Oh, God.
Would you say it's an obsession with Twitter?
Yes. It's a problem that I'm slowly getting better at.
I've seen you get into a few arguments on Twitter.
Mostly about, and I've ended many friendships. And I'm not kidding. Many friendships with people because I won't hate Muslims. That's all. Because I think that people have the right to be. I was raised that if someone is a different religion, you don't judge them based on their religion. So that seems to have rubbed people the wrong way. And I hate these new atheists who are telling anybody that if you have any kind of spiritual feelings, you're an idiot. So I get angry at bigotry and closed-mindedness, and then I just have my own personal problems.
They talk about the Arab-Israeli conflict. They always say that Israel should consider moving back to its pre-1967 borders. I wish my body would move back to its pre-1967 borders. Right, ladies? Guys who also want to be svelte?
The biggest breakthrough was about 5 years ago when I said to myself, I'm going to give myself permission to say anything I want on stage. I thought I was doing that, but I really wasn't.
Because you will bail on a joke in between and then come back to it and do things like that.
Yeah, and that's part of it because I really do have ADD, so my mind does go literally blank every 7 seconds. Even though I'm on medication for it, it still goes blank. But I'll also talk about why the joke didn't work.
My website attracts over 20 unique visitors a month. 20 unique visitors. There's a guy who wears a top hat. There's a lady who collects tea cozies. The joke here is that they are literally unique visitors for those of you who will swear later that there was no joke. Yeah. No. Now, you're wrong.
You'll step outside of the joke.
Yes.
And then walk back in. You're the most realistic comic in that sense, I feel
I'll
like.
take all of those kind of compliments.
Do you feel like when you go on stage, you're walking into a character, or is it just Andy?
No, it's just me. It really is just me. Because I wouldn't even know how to do a character, except I do my mom, I do my mom, Nancy, I went to California, I can do voices and things like that, but I can't do anything but me.
We'll be right back with more It's All True after the break. And when we return, you'll hear Andy Kindler's funny, personal, true story. Here's a clip.
About a year later in camp, we had the thing called Olympics. We pretended they were Olympics, and we had two big, it was the biggest thing in everyone's lives.
More Andy Kindler after the break.
Why isn't there more comedy about the craft beer industry? Tom Sharpling and John Wurster of The Best Show have a theory.
You know, like we can't do a thing where somebody's like, yeah, do me next.
Punch me now.
Yeah. They're also the ones who go like, hey, that wasn't fair.
Comedy and beer on the new Strange Brews podcast. Find this episode and more at wbez.org/podcasts.
Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Tim Barnes, and in each episode, I ask a guest to reveal a headline for a funny, personal, true story. This week's guest is comedian Andy Kindler. Here's his headline.
Young child figures out way to avoid severe embarrassment.
Okay.
When I was 10 years old, I was playing softball in summer camp. And I was Jewish, but I went to YMCA summer camps. Don't get me started on why. And I thought I was a pretty good athlete, but I was always in, well, that's not.
And you're still short.
Yeah, so short. Literally, I was about half a foot tall at that time. The baseball glove, I wore it as a bodysuit. So I was short, and I was, but I was fast, and I don't know why I'm giving excuses like trying to build it up. So I was playing left field, and it was softball. And the ball was hit out to me. I'll never forget this. It's everything I'm going to tell you is completely true. It was like a lazy pop fly. And by the way, I was starting in left field because the flu went around or something. There was some kind of horrible camping, canoeing disaster. Why was I starting is what I told the people later.
But you loved baseball.
What's that?
You loved baseball.
I love baseball, and I always wanted to be a professional athlete. Every kid does at one point. I used to sit in my backyard and go, Andy Kindler's up to bat, and strike one. He steps out of the box. I could do everything but the actual playing of it well. So the ball comes hit to me. It's a lazy pop fly. I'm 10 years old, and I keep saying to myself, oh, my God, I hope I catch it. But more like I'll probably drop it. That would be my...
You're very realistic.
Very realistic. It hits my glove and dribbles out. And this is a true story. To avoid embarrassment, I collapsed to the field and pretended to be knocked out.
Wait, what?
Because I made an error. And was horrified that I had blown an easy pop fly. In my 10-year-old brain, the only way I could save it was to pretend to be knocked out.
Now, did that work?
It worked. I fell down. Not only did I fall down, I possummed it. I lay motionless. So they thought maybe I was dead. I lay out there for 10 minutes. They come, they carry me off the field to a round of applause.
Wow.
See how I did it? I was a goat, and now I was a hero. And my only other memory, this is kind of a add-on to that same story. About a year later in camp, we had the thing called Olympics. We pretended they were Olympics, and we had it was the biggest thing in everyone's lives. It meant more than anything. And it was the relay race, the big relay, which is every member of their team, every member of my team. And I wasn't the captain. They said, look, listen up. Do not run inside the cones. Does everyone get this? Who doesn't get it? Look at me. You see the cones? You see how you can go outside or you can go inside? Do not run inside the cone. So, my team had like a 45-lap lead. All I had to do was not lose the lead completely. I run inside the cones. Inside the cones, I lose the biggest relay race for my team, and the other team is chanting my name in derision.
Oh my God.
Kindler.
So you always have this sort of champion.
I have a chip on my shoulder. It sticks in my craw would be another way to look at it.
Now let's rewind to that first story.
Okay.
How did you feel as you got that cheer when you pretended?
Tremendous guilt and shame. I lied a lot as a kid. Lied a lot. I stole money out of my mom's pocketbook constantly, as if it was a money changer thing. Well, that sounds Jewish, but as if it was like an ice cream thing.
No, were you good at lying, or did your mom know?
She never knew. My mom had no idea. First of all, she had like a purse that looked like hadn't been cleaned in 45 years. She just was not organized. So I knew I was probably going to get away with it. One time, I had this New York Jets banner, and it spilled ink. It's a whole long story, but I wouldn't admit. My brother, I was the youngest, and my brother and sister come to my room because I wouldn't admit, and they go, well, you know, Andy, we've talked. We know it wasn't us. We know it was you. And you got to fess up, boy. Got to get in there, tell Mom and Dad what happened. I couldn't do it.
That's it. That's the show. Big thanks to Andy Kindler for taking the time to talk to me. For more updates on him and upcoming shows, visit andykindler.com. It's All True is a production of WBEZ Chicago and The Whiskey Journal. The show is produced by me, myself, Joe Dassault, and Brad Helm. For more info on this show and other wonderful WBEZ podcasts, visit wbez.org/podcasts. Next week on It's All True, I talk to comedian Lil Rel.
That's funny. That's a great observation. I'm very much a people watcher. I've always been like, I get, yeah, that's dope. Nobody's ever recognized that really. Like, I mean, besides like a chick I date or something, but like I'm a real people watcher.
If you dig the show, please subscribe on iTunes and tell people about it. It's a big help and it means a lot. My Twitter handle is TimBarnes451 and follow the show at All True Podcast. This is Tim Barnes signing off saying, I believe in you.